So, what brings you to visit lonely old one Samdi?
Yo guys, what's going on? It's your boy BIGark, and today I'm going to be giving you a Shadow Priest PvP guide tutorial. We're going to go in depth on the talents, the rotation, the legendaries, the covenants, and even what race you want to be playing, because for PvP that does make more of a difference than PvE. Before we get into it though, because we passed our 750 subscribers, the winner for the WoW token for 750 subs will appear on screen right now. With the magic of photo editing, that'll look super amazing. Don't worry, trust me later. With that being said, though, I want to thank every single one of you that has shown love to the channel lately. We do have another WoW token giveaway at 1,000 subs. So at 1,000 subs, we will be pulling another name from the hat, and the winner will get a WoW token. So if you've never experienced it before, all you gotta do is subscribe to the channel, and you'll be entered to win. So best of luck to everyone, and thanks so much who has subscribed so far. So, before we get into it though, I do want to mention that I do have a new microphone, as you can probably tell. Finally dropped a couple $100 on a decent one as compared to my old gaming headset, so hopefully that furthers the quality of the videos that you see in the future. Anyways, thanks so much, so we're going to get into it right away. Alright, a lot of you may have been a little bit confused why I said that race was an important factor in choosing a race for PvP. This is because a lot of races have different racials which help your stats increase, your secondary stats, or just give you a free trinket. So basically for Alliance, you're going to want to pick Human. This is just because they have that breakout of stun effects, they have their own trinket, as well as increased haste, critical strike, mastery, and versatility, which if you haven't checked out my Shadow Priest guide video, these are the important secondary stats that you want to look for. As well as for Horde, you're just going to want to go to Undead. This is really good because their racial basically removes any of their charm, fear, or sleep effects, which is really nice, kind of like a trinket too to some abilities. Humans have it for overall, and Undead just have it for simpler effects. But if you find that you're fine with having a trinket, or you want to play whatever you want to play because how it looks, you can just pick Magheart Orc 2 just as a secondary choice, because you have their Ancestral Call ability, which allows them to get an increased secondary stat for 15 seconds. So really good, especially if you're bursting on target. You could roll that, get increased haste, increased critical strike, increased versatility, or even increased mastery, and that'll help you do a lot of more damage overall. So overall, just a quick recap for the races you want to pick. You're going to want to pick Human for Alliance, Undead for Horde, just because of the trinket factor that they both have, and I'll see you in the next segment. Alright guys, this is just going to be a short but sweet little tidbit of information on the legendaries you're going to want to go for as Shadow Priest for PvP. Everything is okay for PvE, but for PvP you're going to want to pick Cephus. Cephus, if you remember from Legion, kind of had that same thing as the ring where all your stats were increased, haste, blah blah whatsoever. So this basically, anytime you do lots of control effects, so like a CC, an interrupt, or you dispel a target, your secondary stats are increased by 80 for 15 seconds. Now this can't happen more than once per 30 seconds, but when it does happen, it's really good, because Shadow Priests are really good with having their secondary stats increased, because they can benefit off of any of the stats being increased. That's why I said before, races are important, because if you can stack that with this, it'll be really good and your secondary stats are increased and you'll be able to burst down an enemy. Now it also reduces the effectiveness of crowd controlling effects by 10%, so really good at defending yourself, because you won't get crowd controlled or CC'd as often, so that is always nice. Regardless, this is going to be the one you want to go for no matter what. Cephus is always going to be the best, and that's pretty much it for the legendary. Alright guys, so we are now in the talents portion of the video. I'm going to pop up my talents window here, and you can see this is what the general format is going to look like. This is going to be your base talents, and you can just kind of switch it depending on what kind of situation you get into. So we're going to start off with Unfurling Darkness, and then Intangibility, and then Misery. Psychic Core or Last Word are very interchangeable. Then you have Auspicious Spirits and Shadow Crash, very interchangeable. Void Torn and Damnation, also interchangeable. And then Hungering Void. So if you don't know what all of these do, I do have a Shadow Priest guide where I go over all of the abilities, all of the rotation talents and stuff like that. So it'll basically give you a more complete rundown. I'm just skipping it just for the ease of time with this video. So Unfurling Darkness, your second VT is instant cast, does a little bit more damage too when you do it on your second target. Intangibility now heals you while you have your dispersion up, so that's really good, and also has a reduced cooldown. Misery also applies Shadow Word Pain for every VT you put on a target, so really good, especially in a lot of PvP scenarios when you can't do your casting abilities. If you already done one VT, you already have another free VT saved up and another Shadow Word Pain to be put on a target, because that next VT is instant cast. If you don't know what I mean, Misery basically goes in with Unfurling Darkness. So if I put on a target down here, you can see if I only got one cast off, I can totally put it on the next target for free, instant cast, did a little bit of damage, and you can see that Shadow Word Pain is also applied, so it's really, really nice in that situation. For your 35 level bracket, a lot of these are interchangeable, except for Mind Bomb. You don't really want to fuck with Mind Bomb unless you're in your RBGs or Battleground sort of situation. I personally rock Psychic Horror just because it's another stun that I have, but if you find you're in a lot of CC heavy content, you're getting stunned a lot, you're getting a lot of opponents that basically are all up in your face, do Last Word. Your silence is one of your most important abilities and one of your most important stuns because it interrupts your spell casting for 4 seconds. So if you just need a break, be able to pop some defensives, you need your silence on as least amount of cooldown as possible, so you're going to want to pick Last Word for that. But again, if you just want more stuns, just pick Psychic Horror. This is really good if you're not getting all up in your face. If you have a couple ranged DPS that are attacking you, use Psychic Horror and it'll interrupt them. And I mean, you always have your silence to fall back on, it's just not reduced cooldown. From there, for your 40 level bracket, you can switch between Auspicious Spirits or Shadow Crash. This depends on what you're facing. For example, if you're in like a scenario where you have 2 melee on you and you aren't able to get any of your casts up, like you haven't even gotten your dots up, any of your Shadow Word Pain or Vampiric Touch, Shadow Crash is just a nice little bit of damage and it'll just get any enemies within 8 yards. So if you have a bunch of melee on you, pop it, it's all good. Otherwise, if you have that distance between you and the target you're attacking, I would pick Auspicious Spirits, especially when you're in Void form and you have that opportunity to generate so much more insanity with your apparitions. You'll get harder dealing damage and a whole bunch more attacking the target, so really, really good. You're going to pick Void Torrent or Damnation for your 45 level bracket. I would pick Damnation if, again, you aren't able to cast a whole lot. I mean, I'm going to include gameplay at the end of the video, but if you see where you get locked up, you can't even get one off, you're going to be able to put your Damnation on one target, which is all 3 of your dots, so Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague. And the really cool thing about Damnation is it also stacks with Unfurling Darkness, so if you put your Damnation VT on a target, you'll get that second free VT, and then with Misery, your Shadow Word Pain is also applied to both of those targets. So I mean, we'll show what it looks like here. I'll just drag it to my bars. If I put Damnation on this one here, my free VT is up on there, and look at that, I already have 5 dots on targets all around me, which is really, really good if you're unable to cast. I repeat, if you're unable to cast. However, if you are able to cast, I would totally pick Void Torrent. Okay, Damnation is on cooldown, so I can't switch, but it's really, really good. It's just your burst damage, I would say. A lot of PvE players use it, but for PvP it's really nice just because you gain a whole bunch of insanity over the duration as well as do a shit ton of damage. I mean, it's equivalent to like 18% of a target's health depending on how scaled they are, so really, really nice. I'll show you that once it's on cooldown, but for your 50 level bracket, you're going to want to pick Hungering Void. So basically, whenever you're in Void form, your Void form ability is replaced with Void Bolt, and whenever you cast Void Bolt, they basically take 10% increased damage, and this is for 6 seconds. So if you're in Void form and you're doing it on a whole bunch of targets and your Void Bolt spamming, once you're in that form, you're going to be able to get 10% increased damage on all the targets affected by it, which is really, really nice. I'm just going to showcase what Void Torrent looks like now. So you can see the kind of damage it's doing, around 2.4k DPS, which is really, really cool. And that builds 60 insanity, so from there you can really just pop Void Eruption, pop a Devouring Plague if you need to, and it's really, really good. Shadow Priests have a whole lot of viability depending on what situations you're in. Like I said, if you're unable to cast, you know, Damnation is really good over Void Torrent. Same thing if you have a whole bunch of melee on you rather than range, you're going to want to pick Shadow Crash over Auspicious Spirits. And say you're really confident you can burst someone down, you're just going to want to hit Surrender to Madness as opposed to anything, because you're going to get more insanity generating abilities, which means you can put more dots up on a target, and you basically do direct damage to it, and it activates your Void form. So really, really cool. Saves on your cast time for doing that as well, so it's an instant cast ability. Really, really cool if you feel like you can just demolish someone. I'm going to show some in the end, some footage where you can basically see my burst, but these are the main talents you're going to want to rock over. For PvP, you have a whole bunch of ones. I personally do Void Origins, so your Void form is now instant cast. You can see here how long of a cast time it takes. Basically, in your PvP environment, it'll be instant cast, and it'll still affect all targets within 10 yards. You have Driven to Madness, so you can shove this out basically I would do Lasting Plague or Driven to Madness. So whenever your Void form is not active, whenever you're attacked, it will reduce the cooldown of your Void Eruption by 3 seconds. So already I think it's a minute and a half cooldown, 90 seconds. So, you know, it depends on how much you're getting hit. Honestly, if you're just getting put on, I would totally put it as Driven to Madness, but otherwise I do Lasting Plague, and then I keep Psyfiend if there's a bunch of melee on me, because basically it reduces their movement speed and their healing received. So definitely good in twos if you have a ranged healer and then a melee DPS. Pop this on the DPS, and then they receive 50% less healing effects and 50% movement speed decrease. Otherwise, you could do Greater Fade, which basically helps you get away. Your movement speed is increased, and then your dodge is super increased. So really, really good. It's just an amplified fade ability that you have. I would do this if you're just getting slaughtered. I feel like this is way more of a healer one. This is kind of what you want to use to backpedal, but otherwise these are the three that I would rock. That's all for PvP talents, and the regular talents I went through. You can have fun with it. You can fool around. The great thing about Shadow Priests is they're super able to just change around what they feel like depending on the situation, so they're super viable in that sense. So that has been the PvP talents. I'll see you in the next segment. Okay guys, so we are now in the Covenant section of the video. I just want to add in a personal note where I did a mess up with my Undead Priest that you totally see me do all my Shadow guides on. He is Necrolord, which is not the best Covenant for PvP. As you can see on screen right now, it is the Venthyr, and I'm just on the best Soulbind and Conduit layout. But regardless, Venthyr is the best basically because they have their single target ability called Mind Games. I'll hover over right here. So I know it has a lot of weird percentages and a lot of weird numbers. Basically, I'm going to sum it up. So whenever you use this ability, it's an attack that does 300% of your spell power as shadow damage, and then it says right here it reverses their ability. So any healing that they do to their target will basically be damage to their target, and then any damage that they do will be healing to the target. So it's kind of confusing, but it's really good if you can get them to low health, because their first instinct is to heal, obviously. So if you get them to low health and then they start healing, they'll just be doing more damage to themselves. So really, really good. It's really good for single target. And then you just have Door of Shadows, so any Venthyr class has it, where it's just a teleportation ability, jumps them forward, which is really good at getting away, which is something that Shadow Priests need, especially when they're cornered. So that's really good for their two main abilities, which is why Venthyr is kind of the best. This is speaking PvP and PvE terms. I haven't looked too much in PvE, but I totally regret picking Necrolord. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking with the multiple dot kind of ability that they have, but Mind Games is definitely a whole lot better because of the single target. They're really good in 2v2s and battlegrounds. But that's enough with that. We're going to get into the Venthyr Covenant. So you're going to follow this route here. You're going to pick your Thrill Seeker, Agent of Chaos, Friends in Low Places, and then your Familiar Predicaments. But for your conduits that you're going to want to pick, you're going to want to pick Mind Devourer. So Mind Blast deals 5% increased damage and has a 10% chance to make your next Devouring Plague cost no insanity, which is really, really good because DP is 50 insanity. So if you can save on that, really, really nice. This obviously scales with the item level too, so the number that's white, the percent, will obviously scale higher with the higher level that you have this conduit. For your finesse conduit, you're going to want to pick Clear Mind. So your Dispel Magic, Purify, and Massive Spell cost 20% less mana. Really, really good. Probably the best for that situation. And then your Endurance conduit, you're going to want to pick Light's Inspiration. So Desperate Prayer heals you for an additional 6% of your max health for 5 seconds. Really, really good for a defensive ability, especially because if you have to dispel yourself, it doesn't take a whole lot of mana, and then you have an increased heal from your huge heal that you have. It's not too big, but honestly, it's really nice to have that heal over time effect afterwards. And then obviously you're going to pick your Potency conduit here, Shattered Perception. So Mind Games lasts an additional 2 seconds, deals an additional 13% damage, and reverses additional 13% damage or healing. So as I said before, when the target does healing, it basically does damage. Whenever it does damage, it does healing. That's the effect of Mind Games. Alters their perception, as the tooltip says. But as you pick this and as you level up more and more, you're going to find that the percentage is going to scale even higher and higher. So it's going to do even more damage, and then it'll reverse even more damage. So that's going to be really, really good in your PvP situations. And then from there, you pick Familiar Predicaments. So anytime you're interrupted, stunned, or whatever, it's reduced by 25%. So really good. Nadia is definitely the best, and you're going to want to follow this order with these kind of conduits just to make sure that you're doing the most damage as you can in PvP, as well as give yourself a couple increased survivability just with the Clear Mind and the Light's Inspiration conduits. So that's it for Covenants. Don't make the mistake I did. Pick Venthyr, follow this, and you'll be a-okay for Covenants. Alright guys, so that does do it for the video. This is just me doing some earlier leveling that I had on my priest I was talking about before. I just want to say thank you all for watching. This is the end of the video for information wise. I will be including some footage at the end of just me doing some 2v2s and then some battleground fights where you can really just see how Shadow Priest does really well. Take in though it is Necrolord, it's not Venthyr, so it's not going to be the best rotation because you're not using mind games or utilizing that at all, but regardless it should be a pretty decent film to watch just because you can see how OP Shadow Priest can be despite single target or AoE damage. So that's really nice. I just want to thank you guys all for watching because it's been super fun doing this experience. We are so close to 1,000 subs, so if you want to be entered in that next giveaway, all you have to do is subscribe, and at 1,000 subs we will be pulling the next subscriber who will be winning the WoW tokens. So honestly, thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the footage that I have. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the new audio quality with the new microphone. Regardless, I will see you guys next time.